It took me years to release a game on Steam, but now that I have, there's a lot I wish I had done differently when I first started out. So for this video, I decided to put myself into the shoes of a brand new game developer to come up with the best and most efficient strategy to help you get started in this challenging but rewarding path. Oh boy, it's my first day of game development, and boy am I excited to make the best open world RPG anyone's ever seen. Take that, Bethesda. Oh no. I better stop him before he throws 4 years down the drain. See, Timmy over here has a problem. He's only played a few indie games, but mainly he's only played AAA games in a very specific genre. The problem with this is that he has no clue what indie game developers are actually doing to stand out, which really limits his frame of reference for creativity. So instead of rushing into his dream game right away, I think the best and actually most fun place to start would be to devote quite a bit of time to playing lots of very small, successful, unique indie games that did well, and some that did not so well. Wait, hang on, so the solution to not knowing what kinds of games are out there is just to play lots of games? Isn't that kind of obvious? Well, no, not exactly, because the idea here is to be very intentional about the kinds of games we research. If I was a brand new game developer, before even touching Unity, I would want to know exactly how and why certain solo projects managed to make tens of thousands of dollars and why others flopped. Some questions you can ask when looking at these games are, did it succeed because of some unique hook that's never been done before? Or was it the striking visuals? Or if the game didn't do so well, was it because of poor planning, marketing, working in an oversaturated genre? Try it out. Pretty soon, you'll start to see some pretty distinct patterns. Alright, well, I've done some digging. So, this RPG, Shores Unknown, it did pretty well, and I think a lot of that has to do with the great visual art style. And also, the gameplay is pretty fun. The story is kind of strange with the tone, but I think the art style really carried it. This game, Elmarion, this game did amazingly, and a lot of that has to do with the hook, which is that you play as a dragon. Here's one that didn't do too great. This is The Questing. Seems like a pretty good game, but fortunately, they released it only a couple weeks after they put the Steam page up, so it barely had any time to get wishlists. So I think they failed in the marketing here, unfortunately. What we're doing here is basically collecting data, which is valuable in any creative work. It's really important to start building up awareness for what people generally want to see in games. This is also called market research, and we'll get back to this because I really want to show you guys how I find games for research that I haven't gone into detail about yet on the channel before. But okay, so once you've done the research, you probably want to get cracking on actually making a game. If you're observant, you may have noticed while you were playing all those simple indie games, and you were playing them, right? They have a lot of moving parts. Menus, particles, animations, crunch, sound effects, thought out level design, writing. Yeah, there's a lot that goes into this stuff, and when you're working on your first project, it's very easy to lose sight of just how much work it takes to implement it all. Which is why if I was starting out, the one thing I'd make sure I do and really focus on and not try to cheat my way out of is I'd start really small, like way smaller than you think. Okay, so I just finished my first ever game. It's definitely not my dream game, but I learned a lot and I realized how much work even just this was. And to tell you the truth, I'm kind of glad I did this instead. This brings us to the concept of overscoping. The real reason why overscoping is so dangerous is that at this stage, you're focusing on finishing games, and this should be encouraging because it doesn't matter if your games suck. You've never done this before, they should suck. In this phase, remember, done is better than good. Constantly adding features and never finishing instead of taking what you learned into a new project isn't doing you any favors. Also, for me personally, when I overscoped my first big project, I sometimes felt like I had nothing to show for all my learning. I'd watch all these tutorials and GDC talks, and honestly, sometimes felt like I didn't learn anything at all. But compare this to being able to point to a whole library of small, crappy, but finished games. You can look back on them and see all those 1% improvements in each one, and that to me is just an awesome feeling, and it really is motivating. Having those finished projects will definitely give you the confidence that you're getting the hang of this gig way more than trying to create the perfect game right away would. Cool, alright, well I made a couple small games, so I guess I'm finally ready to start my big dream project now. Oh no, he didn't learn anything. That's it, I'm coming over there. Wait, Timmy. Huh? What? Listen, Timmy, you can't just throw away everything you've learned up until this point and go back to your old habits. What do you mean? I learned so much. I made 6 small games. Think, Timmy, think. You can't just jump the gun and overscope your literal first Steam game. But I thought I was ready for my commercial project. Look, you have to be really careful here, okay? It's going to be really easy for your project to get out of hand now, especially because of how much you think you've learned. There's still a lot more to learn. You have to take the idea of keeping your scope low and apply it to your first commercial project too. What do you mean? Okay. Let me show you. So ideally, the small games you've been making should only take you at most a week each to make. That's our target goal. I think the best next step would be to take one of those first few games, not add any new features except where strictly essentially necessary, and then spend no more than 1 month polishing it. So it's not going to be a commercial game, but it might be worth putting up on itch.io for donations. If you can maybe make 2 or 3 of these 1 month games and then start a 6-month project that you can actually put up on Steam for money, that would be even better. But first, you'll want to make sure that you make the right game based on inspiration you get from games that are already out there. So behind me is game stats, which I use to help me find games that are doing well and try to understand why they're doing well in my genre of choice. So what you do is you select the revenue range, which I recommend between $1 and $100,000, the date range for the release of the game, which I recommend to be under 3 years, and the tag, which will help you narrow down the genre for your game. Also, make sure you look at games that didn't do very well and try to understand what caused them to fail. By the way, this is a bit of an advanced point, but I will say be careful when researching specific games. As more people hear more about your games, you will attract an audience that likes a very specific genre. This doesn't mean you're necessarily locking yourself in, but you should be aware of profitable genres that are also super interesting to you. And at this stage, it can be super easy to just assume that your first commercial game idea is going to be a good one, but a lot of people miss some extremely vital points that will ruin your chance of early success. But if you watch this video right here, even if you've already started your game, your chances of success will skyrocket because you'll learn to perfect that initial core idea. Thanks for watching and God bless.